Jigglypuff, the balloon Pokemon, has been quietly terrible since the dawn of time, that being 1998. With its popularity in the anime, spin-offs, and of course, the Smash games, you'd expect this Pokemon line to be shown some love as the years go by, as many fan favorites have. But instead, one of Gen 1's most popular Pokemon has become one of its most forgotten. Now, the naive might say, Mr. Mode, you haven't done your research. Jigglypuff has received plenty of buffs over the years. Sure, you could argue that it has. In Generation 2, it was given a baby form, so that's something. Igglybuff? More like ugly nerf.
Oh my god!
Okay, well in Gen 6, it was given a buff of 10 base special attack. Finally. And most notably, also in Generation 6, it was given a fairy typing. That's partial fairy typing. Now, this change has been a godsend to a dozen Pokemon lines that have been blessed by the fairy godmother. But for poor Jigglypuff, it made almost no difference at all. It's just such an unremarkable Pokemon, even when the line is included in a modern game. I love using underrated Pokemon, and even I was surprised to learn that this line was actually included in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. And not even DLC either, it's right here in the Paldea Dex. On the first route even. And I completed the Paldea Dex. Huh, could have fooled me. It's not even one of those classic Kanto bottom-of-the-barrel Pokemon like Onix, Tangela, or Farfetch'd. And I think that ends up being to Jigglypuff's detriment, because all of those Pokemon have gotten buffs in later years, presumably because they're in such desperate need of it. I feel like we're all so used to just throwing this Pokemon in D tier without a second thought. Poor Jiggly has been stuck in this limbo from the very beginning, almost as if the developers themselves have forgotten this Pokemon completely, or simply didn't care and moved on. And that's where I come in, because underrated and forgotten is my middle name, and I've been having the Kanto itch for quite a while now. Let's take a look at how we can pump some air into this deflated balloon. I think we need to start with the elephant in the room, the stat spread, because I think this is the main culprit for Jigglypuff's neglect. You may look at a total of 425 and think, that's not so bad. It's actually more than good fairy types like Azumarill. But this spread is, for lack of a better word, inflated. At a glance, a sky-high HP stat of 140 might make it seem like we have all the bulk we need, but specializing in HP alone just doesn't work that well. I talk a lot about how ideal it is to be min-maxed in Pokemon, but that really only applies to offense. Without a decent defense or special defense to back it up, it doesn't take much to get this balloon to pop. Take a look at Chansey, the gold standard of HP walls in Kanto, who has the highest HP stat of any Pokemon in the region with a gargantuan base 250. That is truly insurmountable, on the special side at least, because with a paper-thin physical defense stat of just 5, any half-decent fighting type move, or even any physical move at all, can break through every single hit point this Pokemon stacks up. Hitting Chansey on the physical versus the special side is night and day. You can have all the HP in the world, but it's next to useless without at least one defensive stat to back it up. Wigglytuff is like Chansey, except we're weak to both defenses. Okay, that's a little hyperbolic, but 45 and 50 on either defense is still frail as hell, especially with no ways to pad our defenses in Gen 3. When even Chansey is physically vulnerable with an HP stat of 250, 140 on Wigglytuff suddenly doesn't seem all that high. Make no mistake, this is certainly not that bulky of a Pokemon. So, what are we then? Well, we're certainly not an attacker either. 75 special attack is the best we can do. Unfortunately, Wigglytuff is a wall, not a tank. And yes, I do see that as a downside. The terms wall and tank often overlap due to their shared ability to absorb a lot of hits. But a tank has the ability to do solid damage back to the opponent, whereas a wall does not. A Pokemon like Golem is pretty solid at tanking physical hits due to its high defense and respectable HP stat, but it can also deal heavy damage in return with moves like Earthquake and Rock Slide in combination with its admirable attack stat of 110. A Pokemon like Shuckle also has astronomical defensive stats, but also has no hope of doing any form of respectable damage by attacking outright. So walls like Shuckle often resort to quote-unquote cheap tactics like Toxic and Infestation to stall the opponent out while healing itself with moves like Rest. Personally, I would say that a tank is inherently better than a wall, but there are uses for both. But look at it this way. A tank will only have to survive 1 or 2 hits if they can do enough damage to end the fight, whereas a wall may have to tank 5 or more hits since it takes so long for it to finish off an opponent. And for an in-game playthrough, it's no secret that using a wall is just a pretty boring way to play. There's no way around it. It's a strategy that works best for one singular fight, the way it is for competitive play. In-game, the player would waste a lot of their own time and a lot of power points gradually whittling the opponent away, only to realize that they still need to fight a dozen more trainers on the route. This is why Pokemon like Chansey, despite being a meta-defining Pokemon in both competitive play and Nuzlocking, is almost never used in a regular in-game playthrough outside of some sort of self-imposed challenge run. I totally get why no one uses this Pokemon. It's just too boring, but unfortunately, Wigglytuff doesn't have a choice. It'll probably take 3 or 4 turns to take down anything noteworthy, and as we've gone over, our defensive stats won't really give us that luxury. At the very least, I'll say that this stat spread is actually clever for a balloon Pokemon. Seemingly high bulk with no actual substance, just like an actual balloon. It's so clever that I didn't even get the joke until doing this deep dive. But look at one of the other balloon Pokemon, Drifblim. Also a sky-high HP stat with piddling defense stats, but Drifblim is blessed with a great typing and Ghost Flying. With such a defensive build, 3 immunities will get you pretty far, on top of annoying stall moves fitting for a ghost type like Will-O-Wisp. All these little things do enough to get Drifblim off the ground, but poor Wigglytuff stays right where it is. I'm not really sure there's any type that could save this Pokemon, but normal definitely isn't it. It's the most bland and boring type, but it's what we've got. The fairy typing obviously doesn't exist yet in Gen 3, and even if it did, we'd probably be even worse for wear with so many poison types populating the Kanto region. For better or worse, we're sticking with pure normal in Gen 3. But of course, that also means that there are plenty more serviceable normal types running around Kanto, even ones with great availability like us. Obviously, there's Raticate, who's pretty solid right out of the gate, and of course, Big Brother Clefable, who got everything he ever wanted. It's not that exciting of a Pokemon either, but it does work. Anything we can do, Clefable can do better, especially when granted a pure fairy typing and 2 great defensive abilities in later gens. Speaking of abilities, what does Wigglytuff get? Cute Charm. Well, we're a pink normal type in Gen 3, so that's to be expected, but not underestimated. Infatuation can be a pretty powerful tool, but it's also not the most reliable. I think that Cute Charm is a pretty great ability tied to a lot of bad Pokemon, so it gets a bad rap. But in the shallow ability pool of Generation 3, I don't think we can do much better than this. When the fights are gonna be so long, buying ourselves a couple of free turns will be super useful. And lastly, this is Gen 3, so of course, our level up moveset is pretty lackluster. There are some attempts to pad our bulk here and there, like Defense Curl and Rest, along with some generic stab normal moves that aren't really enough to save us. Looking at everything so far, it's hard to see a silver lining, or even a reason to use this Pokemon at all. And so, Jigglypuff is a very nothing Pokemon. We're not bulky, we're not an attacker, we're just nothing. Fodder, air. It's reflective of this Pokemon line as a whole, I guess. Take an extremely boring stat spread and combo it with the most boring type, and you've got an incredibly unfun Pokemon to play. And that is the main reason no one really cares about Jigglypuff. The most spotlight this Pokemon ever got was in a game where we don't have to play as her. Sorry Jigglypuff, but you've got Psyduck Syndrome. Bad unit feel. But a broken clock is right twice a day, and there are a couple redeeming qualities about this busted balloon. The first is that, since we're a normal type, we're able to learn almost any TM in the book. Almost. There is great coverage here, and it's awesome that we won't have to rely solely on normal type moves. This is even more interesting when combined with the fact that we're a stone evolution, and we can obtain a moonstone to evolve Jigglypuff right away in Mount Moon. These stats don't look so bad when we're not even at the second gym. With this instant power spike combined with early TMs like Stab's secret power, it's easy to see Wigglytuff as a more defensive Raticate. It peaks early, but will probably get boxed down the road. Again, Clefable can do the exact same thing but better with a higher attack and speed stat for the best of both worlds. But I digress. We have found at least one way that Wigglytuff can be useful. But evolving early also means that we won't learn any new moves by level up after evolving. This was one of the luxuries granted to Sunflora, the last Pokemon I covered. Again, that really doesn't matter when our level up moveset was so wasted anyway, but we're hoping to change that today, and I'd like to create some actual decision making on the player's part and hopefully add some moves worth learning down the road. Because stone evolutions are interesting and it's my favorite evolution method. How long can we hold out in our unevolved form? Let's find out. Ability and typing are staying the same, so the learn set is all that we've got. Remember that all of our moves can only be learned as a Jigglypuff, not Wigglytuff, and once we've evolved with a Moonstone, nothing else can be learned except a select few via the move reminder. Firstly, there is no chance I'm getting rid of Sing at level 1, as Jigglypuff is perhaps the most iconic user of it, but I will swap Pound for Defense Curl at levels 4 and 9. Jigglypuff can be caught as low as level 3 on Route 3, and it's just super inconvenient when you catch a Pokemon and it can't do any damage yet. It makes Jigglypuff a burden as soon as we catch it, and that's stupid. Let's also scrap Disable entirely at level 14. Quite frankly, having moves as bad as Disable clogging up our moveset is a disability, so it's gotta go. It's only 55% accurate in Gen 3, and we're risking enough with Sing as it is. I'll pull down Rollout from level 19 in its place, as there might be some potential to combo with Defense Curl in the early game, but I don't expect to use it much down the road. In Rollout's place at 19, I'd like to throw in Uproar. Not a special attack in Gen 3, but decent mid-game stab nonetheless, obviously tying into this Pokemon's passion for singing. Adding this move creates redundancy at level 24 with the piddling Double Slap, so let's get rid of that and bring down Rest from 24. Yes, there are better moves to recover HP, and yes, Rest is a TM anyway, but have you considered... Okay, it's not actually going to be that cool in-game, but I can't bring myself to remove it for this reason. It's iconic. HP is Jigglypuff's one thing, and I think that Rest is a great move to reflect this. Keeping our HP full at all times should be our main goal in this run. And so, I'd like to build around this move a little bit and throw in a combo move along with it at the same level, Sleep Talk. A move that actually lets us perform one of our 3 moves at random while we're asleep. Who says sleeping means that we have to stop singing? If you don't know, this combo does see a small amount of usage in competitive play because it's not as random as we might think. Rest will always put us to sleep for 3 turns, not a random roll of 2 to 5 as sleep usually does. So as long as we can count to 3, we won't be wasting a turn using Sleep Talk on the turn that we wake up, which would result in the move failing. I think that these 2 moves have great potential to give us more longevity. At level 29, in Rest's original spot, I'm going to begrudgingly put Amnesia. I was going to put the holy trinity of Stockpile, Spit Up, and Swallow here, which seemed like a slam dunk, and I have no clue how this Pokemon doesn't learn these moves, but then I learned something horrible. Did you know that Stockpile does not increase defenses in Generation 3? It only boosts the power of Swallow and Spit Up, making it an absolutely garbage move. Like, this really ruined my original intent with this Pokemon. I know Cosmic Power exists, but like, Clefable already learns that, you know? I don't want to make these 2 the exact same Pokemon. I know it's probably better to cover both defenses rather than just the special side, but I'll choose to settle for Amnesia and shake my fist at the Gen 3 shenanigans. Anyway, I think we'll keep Body Slam at 34 because I really do dig the 30% paralysis chance in tandem with Cute Charm. But Mimic at 39 is doing us no favors, and nobody in their right mind is holding out this late in the game as a Jigglypuff for it. So let's make things a little bit more interesting by swapping it for Mirror Coat. Our stat spread is just too perfect for a move like this, countering back with double the damage taken if we're hit with a special attack. Pokemon with high HP like Wobbuffet excel in this scenario because we want to lose a lot of HP so that it all gets countered back to the opponent. These moves don't work nearly as well with your standard defensive tanks like Shuckle or Bastiodon because they just don't have enough HP to spare, but I'm interested to see if we can use our low defenses to our advantage. It's also worth noting that the physical alternative, Counter, is a move tutor move that we can already learn at the Celadon City department store, so both of our bases can be covered without taking up 2 slots in our learn set. If you can make the grind to level 44, I'm going to push back Hyper Voice for Wish. Again, it's hard not to feel like more consideration could have been given to Jigglypuff's learn set. How does a cleric Pokemon with such a high HP stat not learn a healing move that can be passed on to a teammate? I know that there's heavy overlap with Rest, but I like the fact that Wish will probably fully heal any teammate we switch in, since it heals for half of Jigglypuff's HP, not the teammate. And lastly, we can push back Hyper Voice and Double Edge to 49 and 54 respectively. I really don't value normal stab as much when we already have Body Slam, Return via TM, or early Mega Punch and Mega Kick via Move Tutor, but these two are both great character picks. Hyper Voice is obvious for a singer like ourselves, and to me, Double Edge is the classic Yum Ta move that the Guildmaster would use. It's decent enough stab, and with high HP, we probably won't mind the recoil much anyway, a solid way to cap off our learn set. But before we wrap things up, there's one last change I've gotta make to our TM learn set. At a glance, Clefable and Wigglytuff's learn sets are virtually identical, but look closer and there is exactly one omission for Wigglytuff, and it's the one move that can single-handedly save it. And that is TM04, Calm Mind. Is Clefable really that much calmer than the Wigglytuff line, if at all? This is such a cruel joke when these two Pokemon are so similar design-wise. Like, they really did Wigglytuff dirty. I don't love relying on this move, but since we're missing out on Stockpile, I can't not level the playing field with this one minor change to really seal the deal. And that's it. I've done everything I can to give this balloon Pokemon liftoff in the primitive Kanto region. But will it be enough? Let's take a look. As always, I'll be catching a full team of Pokemon and playing on set mode, but I won't be using bag items in battle, and I will not be over-leveling past the gym leader's ace. Jigglypuff, are you ready to take to the skies? The world just isn't the same anymore, is it? The trees are still, biker gangs roam the streets. There's just no point to anything anymore. Not since that fateful day. March 7th, 2005. President Oak passes a new law outlawing any and all forms of music. From that point on, if any citizen of Kanto is caught doing so much as a whistle, they'd be put behind bars. This day in history would come to be known as the day the music died. People don't even sing or dance anymore, and have instead become infatuated with temporary vices like chicken fingers and guacamole dip. Pokemon, however, do not subscribe to the laws of man, and thus, the gift of music survives through them. Maybe, if I can harness a group of Pokemon so musically talented, the Kanto region will learn to dance once again. But I can't make just any music. I'm gonna need some of the most talented performers ever to walk the earth at my side. My goal is clear. I need to put together the greatest band this region, no, this world has ever seen. It looks like Old Man Oak doesn't suspect a thing, as he's even willing to give me my very first Pokemon. So long as it's one of these chosen 3 that he's picked out for me. No, none of these will do. They don't have a musical bone in their body. I pick one just so I don't raise any suspicion and then travel on my way. But on the road to Viridian City, we meet a friend along the way. as I'm lured toward Route 22 by the most beautiful voice I've ever heard. As I crawl through the tall grass, I uncover a level 2 Jigglypuff with the voice of an angel. Surely this will be the linchpin of our musical performance. I name her Wub after some of the greatest dialogue in all of Pokemon. She has a careful nature, which isn't amazing, as it'll lower the damage of any of the special TMs like Ice Beam that we may want to use later on, but we could probably use a bit of extra special defense. Her moveset is amazing. This girl was born to sing. We don't have much early on, which doesn't really bode well for the early game. Can this Wub hit wonder take us to the top of the charts? I'm not so sure, but I have to believe. Because it's gonna be a solo performance against Brock, and his rock types are gonna be super tough to break through. We do land our first Sing on his Geodude and set up a defense curl, but he wakes up on turn 1 to do the same thing. He starts chipping away with Tackle, but with a couple defense curls under our belt, we absorb them pretty well. The defense curls also mean that our new move, Rollout, will be at double power, but it still only does like 1 damage. But the second one does crit for a good chunk, and as long as we don't miss any of the 90%, our power will double each time, which, on turn 5, is good enough to break the boulder. His last Pokemon is Onix, who is packing a pretty strong move in Rock Tomb, but it looks like the AI doesn't like to go for it much since he already outspeeds, meaning that he opts for Bind instead, which triggers Cute Charm. Attraction is low-key one of the best statuses in the game, as Onix now has a 50% chance to lose his turn, which he does 3 turns in a row. This Onix is rock hard, and eventually Wub gets the rollout chain going again, putting the Rock Snake on a timer. All we need to do is land all 5, but the bind is chipping away at us. Can our little Jigglypuff do it? Yup. Our girl Wub gets the dub, reducing Brock's rocks down to Wubble. That is some jiggling Pokemon Wub if I ever saw it. Defense Curl did a great job patching up our bulk, and as long as we can stay alive long enough, Rollout can probably break through anything. Look out, Kanto. Here comes Wubble. That was a surprisingly easy win, but this band could really use some backup singers. And so, on Route 3, we meet a young Nidoran female named Queen. In a family of 7 brothers, it's always been hard for Queen's voice to be heard. I guess in that way, she's always been kind of a backup performer, but her rash nature tells me that there's just something in this girl that wants to break free, and I'm hoping that adding her to the band will make that happen. But we've got one more to go, as just a bit farther into Mount Moon, we meet a Zubat with the Zoomies named Stevie, one of the best piano players Mount Moon has ever seen. Isn't she lovely? Stevie would love to take her talents worldwide, but... Oh, Stevie's kinda blind, and she can't even find her way out of here. Or maybe she's just too nervous to try. Call it superstition. But with a few helping hands at her side, we're happy to show her the way. Signed, sealed, delivered, she's ours. Welcome to the band. The last thing worth noting in Mount Moon is that we do grab a Moonstone here. We'll keep that in our back pocket, but I'll basically be trying to hold out with Jigglypuff for as long as possible. Just know that we have it for when we need it. And outside of Mount Moon, we get access to these two who can teach us Mega Punch and Mega Kick. Both of these are great normal stab options for this point of the game, way better than Pound or even Uproar, which we're about to learn. I decided to go for Mega Punch since it's got more PP, and I'm hoping that this will keep our damage where it needs to be for a long while. But it looks like President Oak is catching on to us as he sent his grandson, Agent Gary, to stop our efforts. Gary is already rocking some evolved Pokemon, so we're gonna have to up the tempo to keep pace. I know Pidgeotto is gonna be annoying with Sand Attack, but we do connect on 2 Mega Punches that do pretty respectable damage for the 2-shot. We even take a Quick Attack surprisingly well. All of our moves are low accuracy anyway, so I decide to not waste my time and pivot into Queen to take out Rattata with Double Kick. Abra is sent out next, who only knows Teleport, so we can bring Wub back in to set up Defense Curl and let Rollout do its thing to finish the fight. Pretty solid handling of a decently challenging fight. I was a little worried about how we'd handle evolved Pokemon, but it looks like we're grooving, so let's keep things up. Queen, keep the symbol splashy. Stevie, take the baseline for a walk. Time to take our talents to the water gym. Misty is up next, who leads with Staryu, and I decide to start with a Sing after taking a Water Pulse, which does a tad more than I would have liked. Fortunately, we do connect, and I go for Defense Curl. Misty won't use physical attacks, but we will need a boosted rollout to see us through this fight. All we can do is hope, as the first 2 rollouts are enough to take it out, but her Starmie is a monster and it hits us hard with a Water Pulse right away. Rollout doesn't quite knock it into healing range, and so we're gonna have to live 1 more. Water Pulse hits again, and we do indeed hold on, but it gets the confusion. But what's this? Wub with the grub? The Personberry tech cures us right away, and we connect the last rollout to win the fight. Misty is seeing stars after that one. I'm really impressed that Jigglypuff could fight her way through a pretty heavy power spike. Maybe I underestimated her. Let's see how far she can go. On our way to Bill's house, we have a fateful encounter with a pretty shy Pokemon. Little Abba the Abra is the daughter of 2 of the greatest saxophone players in the world. She's got big shoes to fill, but, well, she's embarrassed to say it, but this little dancing queen has stage fright. A few years ago, her performance of Mamma Mia at her school talent show got a little overambitious, and the whole school laughed at her. Something like that can really scar a young girl, and now, every time she's about to perform, she teleports away. But I can see in her eyes that the desire to perform still lurks within her. She's very skittish, and there's a high chance she'll just run away, but I decide to take a chance on her. And the gamble pays off. Looks like this little dancing queen still has a little music left in her. Wait, did you just say you have a Mr. Mime? Okay, so on second thought, I actually decide to trade Abba away. I know, I'm cold as ice, but say hello to our new pal, Foreigner. He won't say hi back because he's mute, but I'm sure that won't affect his musical performance, because Foreigner is actually one of the greatest organized choreographed dancers in the nation. But all that fame can't buy him the one thing he's always wanted. This poor fella just wants to know what love is. Is that so against the law? Maybe traveling with us, he'll find that special someone. Who's to say? In any case, we run into Gary again aboard the SS Anne. He's still got his annoying Pidgeotto who loves to lower our accuracy. We do shockingly land a Sing and eventually take him out with a rollout train, and his next Pokemon Raticate meets the same fate. But his next Pokemon is Kadabra, who stops us dead in our tracks with a Disable. I go for a Mega Punch, but it too is low accuracy and we miss, as Kadabra makes things even worse with Kinesis. I guess our new problem isn't staying alive, but stopping other Pokemon from doing whatever they want to us, since we're so slow and it takes a few turns to get set up. But this is nothing our new pal Foreigner can handle, as he tags in and starts firing off Magical Leafs which cannot miss. A few of those are enough to put Kadabra out of its misery. See, I knew we won that trade. And young Foreigner continues to turn heads as Gary's last Pokemon, Wartortle, is weak to grass moves, and so we easily end the fight. Not our best showing, but Jigglypuff's bulk is actually quite surprising, and hopefully our big balloon can bounce back against the upcoming Electric Gym. Time to face Lieutenant Surge, and as we hit the cap of level 24, we learn both Rest and Sleep Talk. I also taught us the Dig TM, which we got on our way out of Cerulean City. These are infinite once we reach the Celadon department store, so I'm not worried about wasting it here. We take out his lead Voltorb with a couple of Mega Punches, only taking one Sonic Boom in the process. This brings out Pikachu, and I prepare myself for a war of attrition as we get paralyzed with Thunder Wave, and then it sets up a double team. But Jigglypuff does find her mark and surprisingly takes it out in one shot. Raichu is last though, and I'm expecting more trickery, but we actually do connect 2 more Mega Punches which do the perfect amount for the 2-shot. I was expecting to show off our new Rest Talk set, but Wub really pulled through there. I'm getting really tired of all this evasion stuff though. I really wish the wide lens existed in Gen 3. Anyway, after a long trek through Rock Tunnel, we eventually make it to Celadon City, where I'm immediately drawn to the School of Rock, where we find an Eevee named Rush. Rush is the best guitar player in his class, but since music is banned for all people, everything he learns in school is purely theoretical. But for Rush, music has always been a little more hands-on, a little closer to the heart, if you will. This worn-out school with only one karate master just isn't letting him live up to his potential, and so he's more than happy to fly by night away from here and join our band. To celebrate the occasion, he steps into the limelight with this Thunderstone we've been carrying, evolving him into a rowdy Jolteon to really up his tempo. Rush looks happy in his new form, and I'm excited to see him really rock out. But for now, we take things slow against Erica. I wasn't expecting this one to be tough, but we're seeing fully evolved Pokemon already like her lead Victory Bell. And since Wub's HP is so high, they're going to be healing a lot with moves like Giga Drain. Fortunately, it goes for Poison Powder on turn 2, and I take time to set up with our new move, Amnesia, which will hopefully mitigate the healing from Giga Drain. I then get off a rest, fully healing us and curing our poison. Then, I start getting off Sleep Talks, the second of which procs Mega Punch for more chip damage. I know that we wake up on turn 3, and after taking an acid, we finish the Pitcher Plant off with one more Mega Punch. Tangela is next, but its best attack is Giga Drain, so it's no threat thanks to Amnesia. This would have been a very slow fight, but we do get a lucky crit on our second Mega Punch to end things earlier. Vileplume comes in last on our final turn of sleep, so I know to go for Mega Punch, but it does big damage back with Acid and gets the 20% defense drop, so we've got to get things moving now. It goes for Sleep Powder next turn, which Wub actually dodges before getting another Mega Punch off. One more should just about do it as Wub hangs on from one more Acid to take the fight with one more Mega Punch. I'll take the win with a bit of luck, but it's clear that our days as a Jigglypuff are numbered and that Moonstone is becoming more and more tempting. Nevertheless, soloing the first 4 gyms is no small feat, so great work Wub. After that, we take the fight to Giovanni at the Rocket Hideout. I've swapped in Water Pulse here to deal with his ground types since I can't see another scenario where this move will be useful. It works pretty well and is enough to one-shot Rhyhorn and Onix, but last is Kangaskhan, who is quite the powerhouse, and it lands a massive Mega Punch on Wub before Little Wub turns the tables, getting off a counter for the one-shot. What a moment. Our bulk and damage might be falling off, but I'm glad we can use that to our advantage. Shout out to the move tutor at the Celadon department store. I swapped counter for rest, but I'll probably relearn it by TM since, again, I can tell that our days as a Jigglypuff are coming to an end. But maybe this will help. After obtaining the Poké-Flute to wake up Snorlax, you can use the item finder to find a free leftovers here. You need to have caught 30 Pokemon to get the item finder, which isn't that difficult. I had that already. And it should be a massive help for a Pokemon with so much HP. But then, I decide that our time has come. We've got Body Slam now at level 34, and I don't really think that Mirror Coat is worth holding out for. At level 37, I finally use our Moonstone to evolve Wub into Wigglytuff. Hopefully now that Wub has a little more chub, our new form can see us through to the end. Here's hoping. I decide to put our new strength to the test at the Silph rival fight first. Gary's got fully evolved Pokemon now too, starting with Pidgeot, who graciously goes for Wing Attack rather than Sand Attack or Feather Dance while we chip away with the newly learned Body Slam for the KO. Growlithe is more annoying than threatening as it does have Intimidate to drop our attack. We play the long game with Rest and Sleep Talk, triggering Amnesia, which basically means we can wall it as well as the rest of the team, which are all special based. Execute would be scary if it got off a Leech Seed since our HP is so high, but a Paralysis from Body Slam takes care of him, and Alakazam and Blastoise aren't as scary as they look, especially since the former only has Future Sight and not Psychic. Body Slam was worth the wait as it played a huge part in getting us this win. Suddenly, Wub is a very tough Pokemon to take out. Let's see how long that holds. Well, turns out not very long, as Giovanni is actually a much harder fight. The Nidorino is easy enough, but Nidoqueen is much bulkier, and one double kick can take out most of our health. We do get a lucky Paralysis to finish her off, but we're just not equipped to deal with Kangaskhan this time. I send out our Moonstone sister, Queen, but her double kicks don't do quite as much as I'd hoped, and she eventually falls to a couple of Mega Punches. Luckily, Foreigner can take center stage here and finish the fight with a few Psybeams. Definitely starting to see a pattern here. We're not able to pad out our defenses against physical Pokemon, and so our defensive bulk is paper thin. Gen 4 Stockpile would have been nice here, but also probably too broken if we could just wall every single fight. Oh well, moving on. Next, I go for Sabrina, the Psychic-type gym leader. I'm still a bit salty about not having Stockpile, but having Amnesia means that we can basically shut down any special attacker, which Gen 3 has a lot of. A lot of the more relevant types in this game, at least in the late game, are special based. You've got your Grass, Fire, Water, as well as Ice, Psychic, and Dragon. And so Amnesia is pretty underrated here, and I'm glad we hung on to it. We don't even need to hit that hard since our Pokemon are so physically frail. There's also a funny little occurrence here where we paralyze Alakazam on a body slam, but its ability Synchronize means we get paralyzed too. But we can't rest to heal it away since rest fails if we're at full HP. I guess this fight went a little bit too well, but I'm not going to complain about that. Glad to have Wub back in the win column. After that is Koga and his poison types. A really annoying fight filled with more physical Pokemon, so we'll need to switch up the moveset if we want to succeed. I dip into our vast TM move pool and teach Wub Calm Mind for Amnesia. We won this from beating Sabrina, and Shockwave from beating Lieutenant Surge way back when. With these tools, Wub is basically unstoppable in this fight. Koga's Pokemon can poison us all they want, but we can just rest it away. Shockwave may not be the strongest attack, but it'll never miss, meaning that all of the evasion crap that Koga likes to pull will also have no effect. Poison might be a physical type, but his Pokemon are much more defensively leaning, so they don't hit that hard, and with a couple Calm Minds up, Wub easily wins the damage war for a very clean shutdown win. With the wind in our sails, we clear out the Safari Zone and obtain the Survey Gem. With this at our side, we can go wherever the music takes us. And the music takes us back to Celadon City in this little pool where we find our final team member, a bass-playing Slowpoke. I'd tell you his name, but he says he can't remember it, so I just call him the Who. What's his story? How long has he been here? He doesn't know. He's so deep and mysterious. The Who is sure that he's got some kind of greater purpose in life, but he just can't remember it. Well, if he can't remember, it couldn't have been that important, right? Our gang needs someone who can play the low tones, and so we're happy to have another pink powerhouse in the band. With our band complete, we journey to Cinnabar Island to turn up the heat against Blaine. Shockwave was great for that one Koga fight, but I decide to give Wub some more firepower in the late game, teaching her the Psychic TM obtained from Mr. Psychic in Saffron City. We're probably going to be a special attacker for the rest of the run now that we're committing to Calm Mind. A couple of those are enough to deal with Blaine's lead, Growlithe. Again, we don't care about getting burned since we can just rest it away. And through Sleep Talk, we can find enough stat buffs to tear through the rest of the fight. That's another team of special attackers completely shut down. Oh, except his last Pokemon Arcanine roars us out. A classic stall tactic, but I just let Rush finish the job. That's been the only gym so far that Wub didn't solo, but I won't take anything away from her there. She had that locked down. Our last gym battle is against Giovanni, who gave us some trouble last time. Let's see if we can flip the script on him. So Giovanni now has a full team of ground types who will attack our physical defense. But his lead Rhyhorn is unevolved, so it's not too scary. Our Calm Minds don't make us any bulkier on the physical side, but they do let us hit harder enough for the KO. And since his main threats Nidoqueen and Nidoking are part poison, Psychic is super effective and deals with them pretty handily. Psychic is just a pretty solid overall move, especially in Kanto. With no dark types and basically no steel types, hardly anything resists it, and we can make do even with neutral damage. I can see us sticking with this move as our only attacking option from here on. And it's the neutral damage that sees us through, as a couple more Psychics are enough to disband Team Rocket for, at least 3 years, and earn us our final gym badge. The power of Wub's music has completed the Kanto Gauntlet basically single-handedly. A lot of TMs did help us out, but that's basically how normal types roll. So let's keep rolling right down to Indigo Plateau. But first, we've got a hot date with Agent Gary, who is still trying to shut us down. He's throwing everything in the kitchen sink at us at this point, but it's still not enough. His Pidgeot was always his scariest Pokemon, but now it's dropped Sand Attack, and we're a special attacker, so Feather Dance does nothing. By the time it goes down, we're already set up with a couple Calm Minds, and we can easily take out Rhyhorn and Growlithe, who are both still unevolved. His Execute does resist us and survives a Psychic, but a Stun Spore is too little too late and we just finish it off. Alakazam could have been scary with Calm Mind, but it's dropped Recover since last time, meaning that it can't set up quick enough. It does land a crit, but even that isn't enough to fell the unkillable pink blob, and we eventually finish it off. Last is Blastoise, who goes for Rapid Spin, and yeah, this is just over. If Gary had the right combo of moves like Leech Seed on Execute or Recover on Alakazam, he probably could have taken us out. Sorry Gary, but you've got no rhythm. Let's hope he's more of a challenge next time. So, this is the Pokemon League, eh? Home to some of the greatest musical performances in history, and we're about to add a few more to that list. You are looking at one of the greatest bands that's ever been put together. And our star of the show, Jigglypuff Pokemon Wub, is the reason we're here. She's been an absolute wall lately that not many Pokemon can crack. And so, I'm sticking with the same set that got us here. We've got a bunch of TMs and PP restoration in our back pocket. Can we kick it up just one more notch to etch our names in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? It's time to find out. Let's rock and roll. First up is Ice Trainer Lorelei, in my opinion, the toughest of the Kanto Elite Four. She's got a lot of bulky Pokemon on her own, but Wub can outbulk most of them since they're special attackers. We need to get all the way up to +6 to do any sort of meaningful damage to them, but once we're there, Psychic is a one-shot on her lead Dugong, and the same goes for the ensuing Cloyster. But Slowbro plays hardball. He resists Psychic and knows Amnesia to greatly reduce the damage we're doing. Surprisingly, this is the first time bringing it up, but we only have 10 power points for Psychic. But when Sleep Talk pulls a move, it'll instead drop PP from Sleep Talk, which also has 10 PP, not from the move it pulls. And so, we've got a few extra shots of Psychic in the chamber if we're lucky enough. And lucky enough we are, as Wub gets off a cheeky critical hit to take Slowbro down, bringing in Lapras, another bulky Pokemon, but without a Psychic resist, it's not much trouble once we break through Confuse Ray. Jinx is last, and she puts us to sleep with Lovely Kiss. Unlike with Rest, we don't know how long our sleep turns are gonna last, so spamming Sleep Talk isn't as reliable. So, I just spam Psychic until we wake up, and with a little more luck, we take it out with our very last one. A pretty long and grueling fight, but that was pretty impressive for Wub to outlast Lorelei's entire team. Let's get some ethers in and keep moving. Up next is Bruno, and he's significantly harder for us. Onyx isn't the scariest lead, but there's just not much we can do for the Pokemon waiting in the back. They all outspeed us, including Hitmonchan, who lands a mean Sky Uppercut for most of our health. With a couple Calm Minds under our belt, a Psychic does take it out, but that's about all we're doing in this fight. When suddenly, it all comes together. We have the answer. Not the what, the when, where, why, or how, but the who. It's all coming back to him. Once he starts spitting Psychics, it's clear that this is what he was put on this earth to do. This is his greater purpose. Not only that, but he suddenly remembers everything he's ever forgotten. His full name is Slovenian Bromance. He has a wife and 2 beautiful children. He thought the Minions movie was pretty okay, actually. He has a Costco membership and some leftover pizza from last week's poker night waiting for him in the fridge. It all makes sense now. I'm so glad that we can finally make this happen for him, because the Who really wipes the floor with the rest of Bruno's team. We really couldn't have done it without him. But let's hope Agatha goes a little better. But she's got some pretty annoying tricks up her sleeve. Her lead Gengar immediately goes for double team, so we need to act fast. Luckily, we do connect on our second Psychic, and it is enough for the KO. Golbat comes in next and confuses us, but we do break through and get another kill. Arbok is third, who actually does do big damage with Sludge Bomb, again a physical move this gen, but luckily we do break through confusion again for another knockout. Another Gengar is next, but luck is on our side again, as we dodge the Hypnosis and break through confusion a third time, but it's not quite enough at only +1. On the next turn, I read the Hypnosis and go right for Sleep Talk, predicting correctly, but we only pull a Calm Mind. Then, Gengar goes for Nightmare, a very scary move that takes a quarter of our HP every turn we're asleep. We need Wub to wake up fast, and she does, getting a Psychic off to put Gengar to bed. Last is Haunter, but he's got the same idea and lands a Hypnosis as well. Then, it goes for Curse, which really puts us on a timer. We need Sleep Talk to pull one more Psychic, and eventually, it does, taking Haunter out to win us the fight. There was a lot of RNG at play there, as Sleep Talk isn't the most reliable move, but that's kind of Agatha in a nutshell, I guess, and I'm glad we made it through pretty easily. But now, it's time for a change in tempo as we move on to Lance. He leads with Gyarados, who doesn't really do much to us other than Dragon Rage. Psychic isn't going to hit anything super effectively from here on, so I do swap it out for Ice Beam, which I farmed at the Celadon game corner. It's only neutral on Gyarados, but it makes quick work out of every single Pokemon remaining on Lance's team, making him the easiest Elite Four fight we've had so far. We've picked up some momentum heading into our grand finale. Can Wub dig deep and get us across the finish line? The only thing standing between us and our destiny is Champion Gary, who's got a pretty diverse team that can really mess with our sound if we don't play this correctly. As usual, his lead Pidgeot is one of our biggest threats, but it chooses to go for Feather Dance and then Aerial Ace, giving us some love from Cute Charm. This does buy us one free turn of Calm Mind, but I want to make quick work of this thing because it has relearned Sand Attack and also Whirlwind to switch us out. He sends out Alakazam next, who really isn't an answer. It goes for Reflect, again presuming we're a physical attacker, which we're not. Does the AI think this because we're a normal type? I don't really know. Regardless, we can basically set up all of the Calm Minds we want as his psychic attacks do nothing. We're gonna need to be at +6 for some of the Pokemon waiting in the back. Once we're there, we put it out of its misery with an Ice Beam. We surprisingly outspeed both Exeggutor and Rhydon, which hardly ever happens, easily finishing them both off with a super effective Ice Beam. But his last two Pokemon won't be so easy as they both resist Ice, starting with Arcanine. An Extreme Speed isn't too bad, but an Ice Beam does exactly half, and the second one falls just short of the KO as Arcanine goes for Roar, which graciously fails. If I understand this formula correctly, that Roar had about a 10 to 15% chance for that to happen. That's pretty lucky. Anyway, Gary heals, but Lightning strikes twice as our next Ice Beam freezes him solid and one more finds the high roll, seeing us through by the skin of our teeth. The last thing standing in our way is the bulky Blastoise, who also resists Ice. It's come to this. Wall against wall, but with one last trick up our sleeve, Wub pulls the ultimate wall breaker, Toxic, earned by defeating Gym Leader Koga to put his last Pokemon on a timer. Blastoise hacks and wheezes as the poison whittles it down. Wub holds his own as the rain continues to fall, waiting for the perfect moment to strike, until it's over. As the curtains close, our band comes out on top. The name Jigglypuff Pokemon Wub will go down in history as the greatest band to ever walk the earth. Wub, you've done it. You've earned us the title of Pokemon Champion. With the world watching this moment, we use our newfound power to relay an announcement to the entire world.
I want you to step back from the guacamole dip. I want you to put the chicken fingers down and turn your television all the way up.
And that is how Wub the Wigglytuff brought the music back to the Kanto region. And that is how I would fix Jigglypuff in Pokemon FireRed and LeafGreen. I wish I could have made that run a little bit more fun, honestly, but Gen 3 really tied my hands. Wub was pretty great and all, but I wish I didn't have to rely on Calm Mind by the end. Then again, even if we had Stockpile, or if I did this run in a later gen, we would have probably just relied on Toxic Stall most of the time, which is probably even less interesting. I don't want to take anything away from Wub. She got great mileage out of early rollout and even Amnesia, but I can't deny that her unit cost was pretty high. I mean, why would you use all those TMs on Wigglytuff when you could just use them on Clefable or Snorlax or even Nidoking? Sadly, I don't think I really answered that question today. I wanted to try out a purely defensive Pokemon, but the inevitable truth is that it's just not a very fun way to play. I'm actually very curious how you guys would fix Jigglypuff in Gen 3, because I think realistically this is about as good as you can do without changing stats. I'm sorry to say it, but this is one Pokemon that I don't think I really carved much of a niche for. These videos are purely hypothetical, and I get to find out how good the Pokemon are as we go along, just like you guys, and unfortunately, they can't all be winners. I'm not sure if I'll ever cover a purely defensive Pokemon again, or at least for a while, unless there's a Pokemon you guys really want to see. But for now, we're just gonna keep moving forward. I'll have another video up in September, but the next Pokemon I cover won't be until October, and that means Ghost type. There's a certain little devil demon who I neglected last year, and I think it's finally time for him to make his mark. Think you know who it is? Let me know down below, or just let me know who you guys want to see next. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you next time.